Welcome to the NAIA Football Podcast. We are in episode 4. We are in the championship round of the NAIA football playoffs, and we had the exciting semifinals round. You need to sit back, relax, and get all the NAIA content you can get. And I am joined, of course, by I wouldn't call him sidekick. He is my equal, Corey Thorpe. How are you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing good. How about you, John?
I'm doing well, just back to the day job this past week after Thanksgiving. So looking forward to talking some NAI with you, Corey.
Yeah, just a note for the listeners. I don't know how good my microphone is over here, or if folks are picking up the baby wailing in the background, but that would be my almost 3-month-old kid, Andrew. So if you do hear a baby wailing in the background, um, just sort of know that his mother is taking really good care of him, and I'm not neglecting my duties as a father.
Shout out to baby Andrew, man. I also like to capitalize on my mic. I know, Corey, your sound quality is always better than mine, but we are going to have this fixed for next season and have way better sound quality, so bear with us. But, Corey, let's get in our first topic. And this is something that every NAI fan, no matter what fan team you're a fan of, need to be listening to. We are going to have a mailbag next week where you can direct message us on the NAI F-Ball Twitter account, and we will answer any and all NAI football questions. And we would love to know any ideas you guys have for the off season for us to podcast about. We have something we have mapped out and we would like to do, but you guys are the one listening and investing your time into this. So we want to cater to your needs as well. Corey, don't you think that's a great idea?
I really do. And if there are any coaches, athletic directors, SIDs out there that are listening to our show, first off, thank you so much. But second of all, we want to talk to you. We want to do as many interviews with y'all as we can fit in, um, because to me, there's nothing cooler when talking about sports in general, even than to talk to the folks that are on the ground floor and you know where the rubber meets the road.
I agree with that, Corey. So make sure, fans, that you give us a direct message on the NAI F Ball Twitter account. We are also looking for sponsors for the show. We have a couple hundred listens a week. We're approaching to 1,000, and we have a couple thousand social media subscribers. We're going to hit 5,000 before the championship game. Our accounts are exploding, Corey. I think it's the content we're giving, and hopefully we're doing the right thing because we're here for the kids. But we are traveling to Daytona December 15th to meet you Benedictine Ravens and Morningside Mustangs. So we are absolutely excited about that. But before we get to playoffs, Corey, there was a very important game outside of the playoffs that was played Friday, and that was the Victory Bowl in Arizona between the Olivet Nazarene and Ottawa, Arizona. Corey, any thoughts on that game?
Man, it just goes to show you that if you have a good running game, you will go far. Um, you could, begin and end the conversation on the Victory Bowl just on Javion Daniels. 22 carries for 260 yards rushing. Every time, John, he touched the ball, it was a first down. That is insane.
I agree with that, Corey. And I was watching the game. I even saw his long run of 90 yards
Mm.
for a touchdown. And it was, he was set apart and he was a big reason why they won. But, Olivet Nazarene started out slow and they were losing 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. And props to Ottawa, Arizona. Your vertical passing game has been great all year. But Olivet Nazarene finished the game from second, third, and fourth quarters. They came and finished. They won 38-35, and the Victory Bowl can't be happier. And Corey, some of our listeners might not know that the NAIA doesn't sponsor this game. They are NAIA teams, but they are also a part of the NCCAA, which is the same as the NCAA, but for Christian schools. And these two teams put on a great showing. And I want to address some confusion that I have for the Olivet Nazarene team. I think you guys had some bulletin board material from us, and I'm glad you guys used it and were able to use it for victory. But I just want to say I did not disrespect you guys at all. I know teams from the mid-states can go out and play anybody, but that was more of just a matchup, a rivalry brewing, maybe between Ottawa, Arizona, and Ottawa, Kansas, which would have made a great matchup. But props to Olivet Nazarene. That was a great bowl win, and I think it's going to pay dividends for them as they go throughout the future. Any closing remarks on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I know that you had kind of had your you were kind of wanting that Ottawa, Kansas, Ottawa, Arizona matchup, but you've got to be just thrilled if you're the NCAA. If they don't call it, they should. That rolls off the tongue way too nice.
Oh,
Um,
exactly right.
with what you got out of this victory bowl, despite it not being Ottawa versus Ottawa, you still got one heck of a great game and a close one at that.
That's right. And, Corey, Olivet Nazarene, as they won this bowl game, they have a lot, like we said earlier, they have a lot to look forward to. And they were a touchdown away from maybe squeaking in as a playoff team. They finished 6-5, but they were only one game away and one touchdown away from beating St. Xavier and winning that division. But I would definitely keep an eye on them guys because I think they'll make a playoff push for next year. But let's go ahead and move on to our playoff games. And the first playoff game we're going to talk about is the Kansas Wesleyan Coyotes versus the Benedictine Ravens. Corey, give me your initial thought on what you saw in that game.
Just as we talked about in the Victory Bowl, the team that can run the ball consistently is going to win the game. And Kansas Wesleyan just they were in it for a half, but that third quarter, you could tell they were starting to fade a little bit there.
Oh, Corey, I absolutely agree with that. The funny thing is, Kansas Wesleyan was winning at one point in the second quarter. They were winning 14-13, and then Benedictine just started basically just being physical and pushing those guys around. Benedictine had 74 total plays, Corey. 57 of those 74 plays was running the ball. That's going to make a lot of Alabama Crimson Tide fans happy. And I know it's making a lot of Benedictine Ravens fans happy. Corey, when you hear the statistic of 57 rushing attempts out of 74 total plays, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Honestly, the first thing is something that we've talked about is that a chicken or an egg? Is that done to Alabama somebody and to literally take a whole quarter off the board, or is that done to shorten the game? But at 7 yards per carry, it's not like they were doing either. They were just shoving the ball down the Coyotes' throat, and they just couldn't stop it.
Oh, no doubt. And, Marquise Stewart had a unbelievable game. Out of those 57 rushing attempts, he had over half with 31 for 286 yards. And when you hear a team that, especially a team that only ran 70-something plays, and don't get me wrong, 70-something plays is a lot for a football game, but 57 rushing attempts, that means your offensive line is absolutely dominating the game. And Corey, what do they always tell you? They say to win a championship, it is won in the trenches.
Mhm.
And Benedictine is off to a national championship game because of their performance in the trenches. And I think Coach Drinkle from Kansas Wesleyan, as he rewatches the tape, I really think he's going to recruit for some more depth on defense. And the Coyotes deserve every tip of the hat they had this year. They had a historic run, undefeated regular season, won 3 straight playoff games, or excuse me, 2 straight playoff games. Um, First KCAC title since 2002, gave the KCAC a lot of respect to where teams are going to be looking out for that KCAC champion next year, which I think will be Kansas Wesleyan. I think that Benedictine, who's just been there before, they just had the game plan coming into it that we are just going to dominate the line of scrimmage. And that's just exactly what they did. And Corey, to go back to the Kansas Wesleyan Coyotes, I said last week that one of their best chances to win this game was to give DeMarco Pruitt 30 carries, which they did. And he had a decent game, 116 yards. But they had trouble on offense in the second half. Benedictine was stout in the second half, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know really what more you could ask from Pruitt. He scored every point that Kansas Wesleyan had. He had 3 touchdowns. Um, and but then again, and I hate to say this because it doesn't go the other way because Benedictine didn't have much of a passing game either, but really and truly being down that much in the second half, you've got to be able to throw the ball. And Johnny Photo, 18 of 36 for 185 yards. Um, that's a lot of dink and dunk. That's almost that's right at 5 yards an attempt. Um, you got to be
Right.
on.
And we know that Kansas Wesleyan is a lot of East and West football at times, but you're right. They had to rely more on the vertical passing game if they wanted to beat Benedictine. But bottom line, the Coyotes deserve the tip of the hat. Amazing season you guys had. Shout out to Salina, Kansas for putting on 3 straight playoff games. That's an awesome community. That is on my bucket list to get there. But congratulations to Benedictine. I am so excited to meet you guys December 15th. And they're going to go play Morningside, Corey. And so let's move on to that next playoff game. We had the game of the week, maybe the game of the year. St. Francis and Morningside. At first you thought Morningside was just going to come in and absolutely rail St. Francis. They went up 14-0, 21-7 after the first quarter. And then you see St. Francis battling back. In the second half, Corey, they look like the back-to-back defending champions, even against the juggernaut of Morningside. In the second half, it was 14-0 St. Francis over Morningside to force overtime. Corey, any initial thoughts on this game?
We've said it before, champ's gonna champ. St. Francis very much looked the part of the quintessential we've been here before. Being down doesn't scare us. Heck, we've been down to this team before. We were down to them last year. We came back and beat them. It didn't faze them. They came back, they fought, that defense held stout, holding Morningside to their worst scoring performance in regulation that they'd had all season. That's the first team that I've seen so far that really and truly made Morningside look mortal. And I can't say enough about St. Francis. That defense holding stout, and forcing Morningside to beat them, with their backs against the wall.
Right. And, to start that game, Corey, you're 14 seconds in, and Connor Niles takes a 50-yard pass from Trent Solzman, our mega powers. And you're like, oh, no, this could be a long day for St. Francis. And, Corey, I'm just going to throw this out here. And it's an excuse, but I would have loved to have seen this game, just like last year, with a healthy Justin Green. For those that don't know, Justin Green is a running back for St. Francis, and he is a big reason why they defeated Morningside last year. He had over 250 yards. This year, Corey, he's banged up, and he had no success. 9 rushes for 18 yards. And you can tell he's banged up. He's not himself. But that's just an excuse, Corey. And Coach Donnelly for St. Francis coached a hell of a game, or heck of a game, excuse me. Sorry, NAIA fans, a heck of a game. And for them to just force Morningside into overtime, unbelievable coaching job by him.
Yeah, I'm still sitting here just kind of thanks to the Morningside video team. I was able to watch this one. John, they had more than 3,000 people by the end of the game watching. So big shout out to those guys. I know they were absolutely thrilled to see those numbers watching their game. But I'm going back and listen, folks. John and I are both born and raised North Florida boys. Ain't either of us really like the cold. To me,
No,
it was
you,
a sight to see that field. You couldn't see the yard lines.
yeah, and that was a beautiful day in Iowa. Snowball. And you're right. I absolutely hate the snow. The last football game I ever played in, Fort Wayne, Indiana, it snowed, and I hated it. And props to both teams. And I'll say hopefully we get some better officiating maybe next time, because I felt like they let some things get out of control, and it took a while to get things going back. But, props to Morningside. They did it all. Trent Salzman had a heck of a day, even with the 2 interceptions he threw. And, Corey, even though Salzman might get player of the year, honestly, I think it should go to Niles. Niles looked unbelievable just watching him. He passes everything on the eye test. Without him, I don't know if Morningside wins that game.
Oh, I totally agree. Having Connor Niles on your team is like playing with Julio Jones in Madden.
Oh, yeah.
You can't cover him.
But, even the overtime winning catch, it was unbelievable. The guy had him covered.
It was perfect.
Often passed by Solsma, but that catch was unbelievable to shield that defender off and to just finish the catch. I think Niles is going to end up with a professional contract, Corey, in some professional league. And props to Trent Solzman, man. He is the real deal as well. And I'm excited to meet those two in Daytona Beach. But is there any closing thoughts before we move on, Corey?
Man, I would just say if you did not catch that game, let's say that the wife or husband, as the case may be, was forcing you to put up the Christmas tree, or maybe you were watching Benedictine and Kansas Wesleyan. Go back and watch that game. You won't regret it. That's an ESPN instant classic right there.
Right. And I want to give props to 2 players. The first one's from St. Francis, the quarterback. Everybody gives the quarterback props, but Matt Crable, man, the percentage of passes, the completions weren't there, but he threw for 236 yards. And in the snow, it's hard to throw for that much. And then the Morningside running back, Arne Ponder, he grinded up some yards and really helped that Morningside offense stay in rhythm. So, Corey, next week we're going to have a long podcast talking about this championship game. And, opinions change. We're not going to spend long on it, as we're going to close the podcast pretty early tonight. But Morningside and Benedictine, I want to know, Corey, what are your thoughts, your initial thoughts, And like we say, opinions change. We're not going to hold you down to your score prediction, but I want to know your initial score prediction as well.
Are you going to do this to me, John? You're going to hold my feet to the fire. Um, and folks, he sprung this on me. Didn't tell me this was coming. So I'm sitting here trying to think as I'm filling up air with the sound of my melodious voice. Um, that was one thing I was going to ask you because you've been talking about how your initial thoughts have been that you think Benedictine could win this thing. Um, I'm going to start it off by saying that I think I'm officially adopting Benedictine as my NAIA school. Um, but just like in the NCAA, where I'm a diehard Florida State Seminole, and I'm not just a diehard, I'm a realist. Um, I will say good and bad about my team. I don't know. I don't know that the Ravens can hold Morningside down the way St. Francis did. And and I think that even though Benedictine has a really, really good rushing attack, I'm just concerned that Morningside is going to get up quick, just like they did against St. Francis. And that the running attack of the Ravens isn't going to be able to get back in the game. That concerns me so much. Um, and so I'm gonna say Morningside 52, Benedictine 38.
Oh wow! So you have Morningside pulling away by a good bit. For me, Corey, I'm going to put it on Benedictine's offensive line and definitely the coaching staff. As you have 2 weeks to prepare, I think the Benedictine coaching staff, as they're watching their huddle film this week, um, to me, a couple of weeks ago, I noticed early in the game when Morningside was playing St. Xavier, St. Xavier, Corey, had success getting back there to Trent Solsma. Now, Solsma made awesome throws, but I think Benedictine is going to send the house at times against Solsma. And if they can just do enough to cover Niles, I think they're really going to disturb the rhythm of Morningside's offense. And I also think that Benedictine will put it on their offensive line. And like you said, that you don't think the rushing attack for Benedictine will be there. I think it will. I think Marquis Stewart.
I didn't say that. I said that I was concerned that Morningside was gonna start too fast and put
Right.
the Benedictine rushing attack behind the eight ball to where it's not like it's not going to be there, but it's just going to be there. I think their hands going to be forced.
Right. Playing catch up. Okay. Playing catch up. Okay. Well, I think Benedictine not only gets pressure on them, and sorry for putting words in your mouth,
No,
not
you're
only
good.
gets pressure, but I think they shorten the game behind that rushing attack. And I think they rely on Marquis Stewart. And I think Stewart gets over 200 rushing yards this game behind that big offensive line. And Benedictine pulls the upset. Not only do they pull the upset, but they leave Connor Niles and Trent Solsma without a national championship in their career. And that's just my initial opinion. And that might change next week on the podcast when we both will go back and watch film ourselves and break it down more. But that's going to be my initial pick, Corey. I have Benedictine shortening the game, and I have them winning, Corey, 28-24.
I hope you're right. I really do. I would love to be wrong.
Well,
Um,
Corey, and you've been behind Benedictine the whole time, so I'm kind of interested to see if your opinion changes because I have not been behind the Ravens. I thought the University of Cumberland's Patriots were going to take them out the first round. So it's going to be interesting to see if opinions change.
yeah, I do, and like I said, Ravens fans, don't get me wrong. Hear it in my voice, the my hope that I am absolutely wrong. I want to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Um, you know, hear the sound of my voice there. But I'll say like I do for Florida State. I just don't know if they're going to be able to do it.
Well, Corey, it's going to be interesting to see, and I hope that our listeners join us for next week for the biggest podcast of the year. Um, is there any closing thoughts you have before we wrap this up? Anything you'd like to say?
Um, let's talk about real quick because we haven't. And just remind folks about the meetup in Daytona Beach before the game because we haven't talked about that tonight, and I want to make sure that folks know.
Right. So me and Corey Thorpe, we will be at BJ's Brewery right by the stadium. What time will we be there, Corey? If the game's at 6, we'll be there lunchtime.
Yeah, that sounds about right because we're gonna want to get our seats in the press box and be sideline watching and watching players warm up 2-3 hours prior to game time. So yeah, probably about lunchtime.
So if you want to come in and meet up with me and Corey as I am pounding a big steak and hydrating myself with some very important drinks, feel free to come in there. And you can always direct message us at NAIA Ball on the Twitter account. Consider following us on Instagram and Facebook with the same platform. We're going to reach out to both teams, and hopefully somebody's listening to go out and go through the right avenues, Corey. We're going to go the correct way and go through the administration of both universities and maybe have one team, maybe a trainer or something, archive the pregame on Snapchat and archive the pregame for another team on Instagram. So make sure you're following us on that because we're going to try to put the wheels in motion. And guys, I hope you enjoy yourself. Corey, one last chance. Anything else?
Oh, not really. Y'all having a good next couple weeks, and this is the most wonderful time of the football year. This kind of waiting, it's almost like coming up to Christmas. Well, it is coming up to Christmas, but it's coming up to football Christmas is what's going on here.
That's absolutely right, Corey. So make sure you're following us on all the platforms. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to direct message us. I've been doing edits, splash edits for free for NAIA football players. I'm here to serve you guys. If there's any businesses that would love to sponsor us, sponsorships start at $10, and your business name could be reached out to thousands of people. We have a huge following that is growing as the day comes. So for John Cooper and Corey Thorpe, NAIA football fans, stay classy.